Was a Pandora's box for me because I thought I started out and thought, yeah, I know water. This is gonna be easy to write about water. My whole life has been shaped by water. And then when I got into it, I realized how crazy it was to write a book about water. It's so immense. It's the story of the whole world, you know. But that said, and since I've written the book too, you're right, it just keeps opening up more and more of
Yeah,
these stories. Um, that are opening my eyes to new possibilities. And I mean, I could write another book. I could continue to write almost the same again with
yeah,
just the new stories I've heard that are very inspiring and hopeful when it comes to this need to reimagine, I
yes,
suppose, a healthier future for all of us that's
yeah,
more diverse and inclusive and that celebrates our
yeah.
connection with water. Yeah. Exactly. And isn't it fascinating that everywhere in the world, these rivers are named for these feminine deities, these goddesses. And
Yeah,
it speaks to, I suppose, a time when our ancestors understood water as life-giving.
yeah,
And then as women, we bring forth life and it begins in water for all of us. So it's, and then with springs, even in Ireland, wherever springs come up from the ground, wet wells,
yes,
we have still so many, what they're called holy wells now,
yeah,
but they would have also been seen as this kind of opening of
yeah,
womb and source of life where
yeah,
people would go to seek blessings, and we still do. So it's just there still in
yes,
our
yeah.
culture, these little remnants and reminders. I think for me, well, it's a number of things. I'll start with the personal. For me, I have such an intimate relationship with water and especially the sea, both as a surfer and a marine social scientist. Um, Being born on the west coast of Ireland in Donegal, so close to the sea. And so having this lifelong relationship with it and then seeing how that's um benefited me in so many ways. So that there's that, and then my work has been focused on better understanding that relationship, and how we might, I guess, for me, realizing it, also the healing and restorative benefits for myself personally, how it changes how I feel, and then seeing how that happens for other people, and that it seems to also transcend so many cultures. It's very cross culturally, we have this quite unique connection, you know, with nature in all its forms, with something in particular about water. And I also wanted to challenge my bias. Of course, I'm all about water, but is there actually like, curiosity too about what is it about water and us as humans? And then there is this intimacy there for all of us. It isn't just me. So that was kind of discovering that, and wanting to unpack that more is part of the motivation as well. Seeing ourselves, I think it's a lovely way to bring people closer to understanding the importance of connection with nature in our everyday lives by first, we're water bodies. We have this water in us all the time. We're not, so that's for me speaks to this story of connection rather than separation.
Yeah,
I think through water, it just becomes very real,
yeah,
and embodied rather than in the head, which so much of especially the global crises we face, around the planet, the environment, our very humanity, it seems, is all tied to me to this need to restore these relationships, and recognize how everything is connected to everything else. And for me, water is such a powerful way to understand that. And then I think the timing of the book has also happening when there seems to be this renaissance with our love affair with water, with the resurgence in so many places of cold water swimming, and
yes,
during and post pandemic, this kind of awakening and awareness, it seems to have increased
yeah,
dramatically around nature and healing, and then water and blue spaces and blue health. And so my research was focusing on all of that as well, of course. but at the same time, we're kind of having this awakening or reawakening, and globally, water bodies and our ocean are being degraded so rapidly, more than any other ecosystem. And so there's this urgency, of course, to get this message out there. Yeah, for me, I think with the challenges we face in the world, it's about, I feel, if we could look at it from a relational point of view, it would change everything. Rather than going into the tendency with quote unquote the environment or climate change, is to go into like fix it mode.
Yes, okay.
Which is still coming from our human-centered way of viewing things and having to find a solution and solve the problem. Whereas actually for me, going at it this way with the narrative of ebb and flow and the message of relationship feels very different. Yeah, it's really important for me because I've been trained for the most part of my career as an academic, as a scientist, and to think in terms of like the Western scientific mind. And yet, because of my upbringing and through my surfing and having personally this quite spiritual connection with water. And then with the research I'm doing around blue health and it becoming now quite a buzzword, blue health, blue mind, and
Yes.
wild swimming, and the piece that's been missing and is missing in the research is the acknowledgement and then the integration, of course, of the indigenous knowledge and wisdom around this, the power of water to heal, which is, ancient, millennia old knowledge. And then indigenous peoples today have managed to retain it, protect and preserve that knowledge because they never lost the connection in their societies. And yet it's something else. So then, especially being here in Ireland, it's still there beneath the surface that we all have this ancestral connection with water, if we go back far enough. And so I felt like it was needing it to do like a remembering, like, because I also feel when it comes to water, our bodies just know because we respond to it instinctively, naturally, intuitively. And I guess the world I was in for so long was very much about the head and
Yes.
the analytical mind. So it was needing, see if I could find a way to write a book that could weave both together, because the science is very exciting around understanding these connections now too, but they really only seem to just validate I feel, the wisdom that was already there. Yeah, it was very much born out of a kind of colonial or capitalist mindset. If you think about the origins of Western science, when you're learning your whatever scientific discipline you're in, you just assume science is objective and it's a way of viewing the world without bias, and which is, actually totally not the case. So it's just, I think again, it's acknowledging that there's it was born out of a world that was very about this, that created the dualism, separating ourselves from nature, and then being able to largely study nature to turn it into a resource for our use. So it went hand in hand with the commodification of much of the natural world, and adding to that story of separation and breaking everything down to the sum of its parts, so much so that we forgot about looking at the whole. Yeah, I guess there's two parts to that of course that's the ultimate shift of, okay, in restoring a relationship, how does it alter our behavior when we I think even by just having more exposure to those experiences, to just being outdoors more, going to the water, is the starting point, but it doesn't necessarily lead itself to, profound behavior change or collective action. Or, but for me, I think what the shift that I feel also needs to happen is, how do we challenge our human-centric view of the world? So that I think a lot of, again, when it comes to the problems and challenges we face, they're so complex, and we're only one of 8 million species. To think that our way is the only way, I think, is also madness. And of course, it's not a great way. We're quite stuck. So I think a lot of the practices in ebb and flow for that reason are very also very embodied, just simply to try to get us out of our heads and more into our sensing feeling bodies so that we can understand the world in a different way. And I think from there then everything kind of shifts. So that's one of the reasons. And
Yeah.
then the other is like, how do you encourage instead of just, divulging the facts or the information isn't enough to simply know.
Yeah.
Encouraging ways then for people to actually have these direct experiences.
Yes. Yes.
There's a huge movement on the rights of nature law. Um, because that is one of the more powerful mechanisms we have in human
Yeah.
society for protection. And Um, it's interesting to see that happen. And even now we're in the UN Decade of the Ocean,
Yes.
ocean science. And within that, then there's 10 challenges that are being addressed. And one of them is certainly around this about how do we restore our relationship with the ocean. And it focuses a lot on ocean literacy. So I think there is a growing understanding and awareness of the value and importance of the ocean now.
Yeah.
But going beyond that, yes, how do we, if we do value it, then we have to shift in how we treat the ocean
Yes.
or underwater. And it's interesting to see even there now that there's this whole dialogue around the rights of the ocean
Mm-hmm.
and a movement to look at that. And I think it's happening born out of, for example, these increasing issues that are very cross-cutting, but also bringing lots of countries together. Because in the ocean, you have the high seas, which
Yes.
is, essence belongs to no one and everyone. It's causing challenges. And then this push for deep sea mining. And
Yeah.
so a lot of that is bringing to the fore, okay, this need to have this wider global protection. I think, yeah, the rights of water, what's essential for our own survival because we are water. So it's interesting to see. I think that will be a huge change in the
Yeah.
coming years. What's central to my work is this, yeah, what does it come down to? I think and it comes up again and again in ebb and flow, and in all the conversations or interviews I did, is the importance of that sense of and acts of reciprocity. So for me, it's like when we're in, it's not enough to protect a piece of land or a body of water, or to try to restore an environment if we're not also working at the same time on restoring our relationship with it. And for me, that also means of like, how do you restore this intimacy that we once had with land, with water. Our dependency and survival was much more on the edge. And that now we're kind of removed from it and we don't notice until, there's things that don't appear on the supermarket shelves or, stock starts to get low. But we don't do it. So it's a disconnect from our food, from land, from each other. And in order to create any change, we have to also make that shift from these individualistic ways of thinking about these issues,
Mm.
like individual behavior change, and move it into the collective of we
Yeah.
as a whole, because it's definitely going to take all of us to
Yeah.
change anything. And then you can't do that if you don't have this sense of connection and community. So for me, that's absolutely essential as a starting point wherever we are. And it's something any of us can do and work on. And a wonderful medium to do it is through water because you have that element of play. We know
Yeah.
when we get people together in water, we open up and connection happens more naturally. So
Yeah.
that's why it's so wonderful to see so many more of these swimming groups everywhere.
Yes.
And I know it's a huge part of your life, Annette, as well. That's
Yeah.
just one example. But and that yeah, so and it seems to be so many women. I think as a mother, I understand that now because it's one of those things where you can get this at that immediate release and
Yeah.
reset,
Yeah.
of the nervous system. And you can do it in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Well, I love asking people, if I, meet them maybe for the first time, or if we're in a group or in a workshop together, beginning with asking people, where is their nearest water? And then just learning about from there. I mean, most people will have some idea, but some people don't at all. And so it leads to a really interesting exploration of just, that
Yeah.
would be my question, almost, of getting to know your water. So
Yeah.
finding your nearest body of water. It could be a tiny little stream, maybe it's a pond, it could be,
Yes.
any type at all, and then getting to know it, and maybe even a tiny part of it, and over time it's just remarkable what we can learn
Yes.
um, about the water that's just right there,
Yeah.
next to us. That
Yeah.
would be the starting point.
Now
Yeah.
everything in focus, I can see it clearly. Every little detail, crystal clear and dread, breaks my little brain. The clarity hurts. So looking at the pain now, we clearly let us down. If I could alter, shift over petty ways.